Today's video is very important. It's something that every gardener needs to take a minute and do right now. It doesn't matter where you live, what climate you're in, what zone you're in, it doesn't matter. This needs to be done right now, and I'm going to show you what to do and how to do it coming up. So what do you think is the most important thing you could be doing at this time of year as a gardener? And I'm talking about Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, doesn't matter. In every garden around the world right now, you should be planning out next year's garden. Hear me out. Right now is the height of the season. It's never going to get any bigger, and you're never going to have a better time to assess the situation. What worked, what didn't work. All of these things are going to run together in your mind when it's 8 months from now and you're trying to figure things out about the next garden. Right now, you know if you planted enough tomatoes. You know if you have enough squash or maybe too many. Maybe you didn't have enough beans and you could take out some of the squash that you had too many of and put beans there. So planning next year's garden is the most important activity right now. And I'm not just talking about making some notes. I'm talking about getting a piece of paper out and drawing out a rough copy of your garden area and plugging in the plants the way you want them to be next year. So you can put it away, and then when it comes time to plan next year's garden, you just get it out, trust yourself that you knew what you were talking about back now, and do the garden that way. And I do that every year, and I learn so much, and I don't make the same mistakes over and over again, unless when I dig it out in the spring, I think I know better than I knew back in the summer. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a walk around in my garden and show you what I feel were my successes and what I could do better next year. And then I'm going to show you how I've planned out next year's garden already on paper, so you'll know what to do for yours. Because even though next year's planning will be here before you know it, if you're like me, your memory won't be quite as sharp as it is right now. So let's get over to the garden and see what worked and what didn't. So first thing is, I'm not growing birdhouse gourds next year. They've kind of just taken over. They do not look good. They have been a magnet for mildew, and they're passing it to this other squash. They're cool. They are cool and they're fun, but it's a one and done thing. So the corn that I planted in these pots, these smart pots, they're too short. The pots are too short. They didn't give enough depth for the corn to really mine all the nutrients that they needed. And so they're quite stunted. They're just barely taller than me. And the ones out front in the Three Sisters bed are like 3 feet taller and doing really well, super green. So it was an experiment that I don't think worked. I'm loving the okra in this bed, but not in this bed. It first of all can be planted closer together. It's very decorative. You know, it's pretty. It's got pretty stems, leaves. The fruits are nice. But I'm thinking this could grow out front next year in the edible landscape area, because this would provide nice color and texture for that bed. So that's what I'm going to do. Same with the loofah. I love the loofah. Look, it's still a beautiful plant. It's got covered in flowers. And it climbs nicely. It doesn't take over like this guy did. But I think this would look good out front on 2 teepees. One on each end of the bed. I think that would look nice. I'm going to replace the okra with onions, globe onions, next year. I interplanted globe onions this year as a way of saving space, and unfortunately they got shaded out, and I'm barely going to get any globe onions. So I think I'm going to dedicate this back bed pretty much just to them, and they should do much better. The squash I'm going to leave as is, not going to change anything. They've done really well here, just like this. I'm going to leave them. The peppers are doing great, and I may overwinter most of these just right here in this bed, which will leave them in place for next year. And so, yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they're doing really well. Look at these Jimmy Nardellos are getting super long. The poblanos are great. I just picked a couple of red bells yesterday. The sweetie drops are loaded with little fruits. So overall, these two beds, I'm leaving the same. Now over here, this year I did tomatoes halfway and then the Armenian cucumbers the other. We came home from our trip a couple days ago, yesterday or day before, and the mildew had completely taken over while we were gone on these Armenians. So they're going to be going out pretty soon. It's too much space for Armenians. I didn't need that many, but I think this coming year I'm going to just have tomatoes go all the way down and maybe grow one of these on a TP or something. I don't need that many. The watermelon here are doing great. In fact, I'm thinking this one, I had to replace the masks because they were getting so heavy. This one is just about ripe, I think. I'll show you a video of that. I can't wait to taste it. But anyway, those are doing really well here. Now the beans are doing really well. I'm getting quite a few, not as many as I would like. I'm gonna take the three, I have the 3 TPs here of beans, and I'm gonna also do next year, I'm gonna take the Malabar spinach out. I'm actually gonna grow it, but more of a decorative thing back on the fence behind the gazebo to cover that up. Obviously we're taking the birdhouse gourd out, and the loofah is going to go out front. So those 3 will all be runner beans or pole beans next year. Now my garlic did great this year. If you watched the harvest video, you saw that, but I really only had it in this little area right here. And that wasn't enough for, you know, keeping us long term. The watermelon also did great, like I said, and I don't want to change anything that way. So what's cool is this, in 2-3 months, I'm going to be planting garlic again, and I'm going to actually fill this bed with garlic. When it's time to harvest the garlic, I will have watermelon ready to put in its place. So I'm going to just kind of teeter-totter back and forth seasons with watermelon and garlic. I've gotten lots of questions in the past, and I have answered them on other videos, but just quickly, and I'll do when we talk about preparing the beds, I'll talk about this some more, but everyone asks if I rotate my crops year to year. I do not. That is important in some places. If you are doing no-dig gardening, that doesn't seem to be an issue because you're covering the pathogens in the soil with another 3 inches of compost every year, and so you don't get the splashback. Also, I water with drip, so I don't get the splashback from that as well. And so I think that's the reason that I don't need to do crop rotation. If you are still digging up every year and tilling, then you probably do. So for me, this is going to be the 3rd year growing tomatoes in this bed, and I'm not seeing any more pests and disease than I would if I had rotated them. My San Marzanos have underperformed what I thought they would in terms of production. Now, I still have a couple of months left to see what's going to happen, but so far, compared to my Romas that I had last year, there's no comparison. So I will give them the next 2 months as a chance, but I'm pretty sure that next year I'm going to be ditching the San Marzanos and going back to Roma. They just produce so many more fruits in a smaller space. The Three Sisters bed is doing great. Everything is working exactly how it's supposed to, but I'm just, first of all, it takes up a lot of space that I need next year for our edible landscape. But I'm growing plenty of beans in the back, so I don't necessarily need the beans to grow up the corn. We don't really eat that much corn anyway, and so we don't really need that. Sunflowers are nice, and the pumpkins are doing great, but I can squeeze those into the edible landscape. So Three Sisters is working exactly how it's supposed to, but I'm not going to do it next year. So these are the 3 main beds that I have: the squash, the okra, the peppers, the beans, all in right now. I'm not going to put what I had this year and why I'm changing it, because I won't care about that next year. I'm just drawing out the plan the way I want it to be. And these little squares with X's are the TPs, and I have beans for all of those. The back bed is going to be strictly onions. Squash, I'm going to leave it the way it is, and peppers, I'm going to leave the way they are. Now, This is my tomato and Armenian cucumber bed right now. Taking out the cucumbers, it's going to be full tomatoes. And then in the front bed, it's going to be garlic with the watermelons. And I decided maybe I might tuck in some bush beans here and there if there's space. And I just made a list of what I'm going to put out front: okra, loofah, and my herbs. My herbs, I think, back here are not getting enough sun. And in the front yard, they will get all the sun they need. And then I'm going to swap out the Romas for San Marzanos if they don't perform better soon. So that's it. It doesn't have to be ridiculously detailed. You don't have to put what varieties of things you're growing. Just block in very basically what you're doing based on what didn't work or what worked this year. If it worked, leave it alone. If it didn't, change it. I always say experimentation in the garden is the only way you're going to get good at what you need for your family. Hope this wasn't too long. Hope you got something out of it. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. It really helps. Comment down below on what your thoughts are. If you've been keeping a journal or doing something like this, and if that's helped you, let us know. If you have other ideas, let us know that too. I will see you tomorrow for the next video in our fall garden series. Have a great weekend.